What is up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back, one. Welcome back, all. From Snowmageddon, number one. We're happy to have you here back at the Bassin Castin podcast and thing that we do over here at USA Bassin. Got my man over here, the one, the only, the man who invented winter shorts. They come from thousands, hundreds, millions of miles around just to fish his tournaments. Chip Ayers, how you doing?
Mr. Chad, I'm doing good. Well, except for like you said, we got about 15 inches of snow and 9 inches of ice on every body of water around here, and it's just been it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge being in the Hoosier State for a little while, but I don't feel so bad. I've been kind of peeking on some of those elite guys down there at Alabama busting ice with those new rigs and shredding those wraps on them, and I feel like, you know what? Well, welcome to the Midwest, boys. So, yeah.
Well, buddy, it's kind of like they always say a slow burn.
Yeah.
But it's more like a slow melt is kind of what's going on around here right now. It is painfully slow melt. We did make it above freezing there for a couple of days, so that was nice.
That was nice. And you know what? I heard next week. I just heard next week up around in southern Indiana, we may touch 60 degrees. So,
there's a possibility.
Possibilities there. And you got Turtle Creek over there at Merriam getting ready to open up, and you got Newton. So you can still find some soft water out there to make a cast or two. So that'll be good.
Hey, and we got tournaments this weekend.
We do have
Old Hickory, Pickwick, Paris Landing, East Tennessee Winter Division, Danville Winter Division.
They're down there at Danville Division. So yeah, and from what I'm hearing, that it's been tough, but with that warming trend, those fish they'll probably eat. And so I see Dakota already jumping in there. Dakota, I want to say it's like the 15th or 18th of February. Turtle Creek. He was asking when Turtle Creek opens. Usually around the middle of February. So you can go online to Hoosier Energy. You can search that on Google, and they'll be able to let you know. Excuse me. So yeah,
just getting your truck.
A lot of good tournaments. Yeah, just getting the dust out. Just getting the dust out, brother. A lot of good tournaments coming up this week. If you feel like you got to scratch that itch, jump in the truck, run down the road. Old Hickory's, it's not very far from anywhere. We all know about Paris, So Pickwick, those smallmouth are going to be eating at the tailwater. So, yeah, there's some exciting stuff happening, getting ready to go.
We got one more. Neely Henry Division. So I just jumped on the homepage live while we're doing this, and that's I read off what it said. So I haven't dove into it. You guys will get from me. The weekly tournament flyer is back this week. It's been too cold the last 2 weeks. I didn't feel like it hurt my heart to even make one. So the weekly tournament flyer will be back this week. Look for that tomorrow at USA Bassin socials. So yeah, that's coming.
Hey, yeah, and something real quick for everybody. Talked to Miss Marcia in the office yesterday or day before. A lot of entries are starting to come in for the Classic. I think we're right around 150, maybe more than that for the
Cup.
For the Cup. Yeah. And I think we're approaching 50 to 75 on the Classic. So guys, get your if you're wanting to go down there and get a little taste of Kentucky Lake, I would suggest two things. Number one, get your money in, and number two, you might want to listen to the guy we got on tonight. He's going to drop some juicy nuggets.
He's very well versed and very well educated on the said Kentucky Lake. You guys have probably read his articles at wiredtofish.com. Maybe if you've been to visit Kentucky Lake, you've read his articles. He's been around for a good long while, and he's got a heck of a lot of knowledge on this lake. So let us introduce you to our guest, a one-of-a-kind man, an excellent Pulitzer, a Bachelor Prize winner. Is that a word?
It sounded good tonight.
Jason Sealock, everybody.
Appreciate it, guys. I'm not sure if that introduction was just a nice way to say I'm old, but
well, we're all getting grayer, bud. We're all getting grayer.
Yeah,
it's just happening all on its own.
Yeah. No, we get reminded of how old we are when things freeze up and you got to go shovel that stuff out there everyone calls snow. That's not snow. It's more like picking up concrete bricks and flinging them out of the way. So,
yeah, you guys have had a heck of a time down there, and
and the worst part, honestly, the worst part is like I get a little melancholy in the winter, anyways, because the ice and stuff kind of interferes with your fishing, but then it was getting so good the first couple of weeks of January with those warm temps and the water was warming up early. Like the fishing was as good as I've maybe ever seen in early January. And and then all this hit, and now all of us are like, like we're all like chomping at the bit to get on the water because it was so good. So I'm kind of anxious for the ramps to open back up and let us get back out there. I mean, some of the bays are froze all the way out to the river. So
I seen that Big Bear's been posting a lot of pictures of the docks and everything, trying to keep people at ease, and
several.
How thick's the ice out there actually right now?
So what we got like 6 or 8 inches of snow in places, and then we got sleet on top of it, and it kind of compacted the snow down and made it like this real dense, but best way to describe it's blocks. Like clearing my driveway off, you would get like 3 inches. You'd pry your shovel up to pop it loose, and then pick up that 3-inch block and flip it out of the way. Go another 3 inches, pry it up, and it's this thick. It's 4 inches thick of just solid, right? So, unfortunately, we didn't get the ice in like on the north end of the lake, but like Birdsong Marina, the marina collapsed. And
I saw Birdsong and I saw the video down there.
There's another one. I hate that I can't remember which one it was, but there's another one that is starting to sink now, and the boats are going underwater. So they're asking people to come grab your boats and get them out of there, because the problem is, of course, everything's froze up. Nobody can get in or out or move anything around. So it's a nightmare right now. We need 50-degree days and sunshine and rain and whatever we can to get this stuff out of here quick.
Well, from what I've seen on the forecast, it looks like you guys are about to get it starting this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's still below freezing at night, the last night and tonight again. And then I think after tomorrow, we start getting 40s and 50s. And even like Sundays, there's a chance it'll get to 60s. Like I think like a high of 58 is what I saw on Sunday. So hopefully that's going to melt a bunch of this. Kids just went back to school Monday, but all of us are kind of chomping at the bit to see what fishing is going to be like. I'm sure there's a major shad kill again, which we had. I think so we had like a perfect storm for the first part of January, because our water temps did get below 40 the end of December around the holidays. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of our magic number for the shad to die. So anytime it gets below 40, we start having big shad kills. And so that had happened end of December, and then we had all these like 60 and 70-degree days in January. So the water temps got back up like 44 degrees, and the fish were going crazy because I think they had been gorging on dying shad. And so bass fishing was phenomenal. Crappie fishing was phenomenal. Like really, really good fishing. So I'm kind of hoping that we're going to have one of those scenarios again where, now there's a big shad kill. Let's get a big warm up. I would love to we had this happen a couple of years ago where the rain came in, and every time it rained, it would be like 65 degrees, 60 degrees in February. Mm-hmm. And the warmest water in the lake was in the back of all the bays, and the fishing was phenomenal. But you'd had to know to go back to the back, because the shad had got the memo. They all went to the back of the bays. And so in February, that's not something we do a lot, but that's where all the fish went to. So that made for really good fishing if you knew that was going on. So.
Now, you and I talk often on this topic, and it has been it has been a blessing to be able to pick your brain and kind of hear some of your studies as it's went along. Talk about the health of Kentucky Lake and where it is right now, and then let's talk about where you see it going rather than focus on the past.
Yeah, sure. The ecosystem itself is in like the best shape I've seen since I've lived here, and I got here in 2005 is when I moved here. So I've been here a little over 20 years now. But yeah, as far as like nutrients, fertility, food in the system, like there's an unimaginable amount of shad and bait fish, microorganisms in the lake. So, and I say all that to say, like, bluegill are the biggest they've ever been. Shellcracker fishing's phenomenal. Crappie fishing's really good. Bass fishing's really good. The bass fishing's getting better finally. Like, that seems to be the slowest thing that rebounded in all this. Because I'll say, like, when all this kind of happened in 2015 is kind of when they had the last big carp boom here. And then like 2018 is when we started seeing the real results of that, as well as having all those flood years. So that's really what impacted the lake, was having so many years of floods in the spring. But that kind of was a perfect storm that kind of hurt our ecosystem. So the shad population died off to almost nothing there for a couple of years. And so now that's back stronger than I've ever seen it. Like, that you could walk on the shad in the bays right now. So that's encouraging. There's tons of food in the system. The guys that I have talked to in the first couple of weeks of January, because of course, when you see good fishing, then you want to kind of compare your notes to everyone else. But it was like a quiet, not very well kept secret how good the fishing was. But it's like I'm catching giants, and I'm catching like 7 or 8 of them a day. Like, it was really fun fishing for like 2 weeks. And so I'm really encouraged with this year because of how well the ecosystem has come back. Obviously, we don't have grass, so that's the one thing we all wish we still had. But outside of that, like, the system itself is in great shape. The smallmouth population, obviously, is what everyone's kind of talking about now here. But the largemouth, I think, is going to be the big player this year. There's finally getting to be a consistent number of those 5 and 6 pounders. So, which is, a difference maker when it comes to tournament fishing.
Right.
So where do you see it headed?
Yeah, I think we're and the biologists would agree, like, we're headed into a boom period. So, like, I would say, like, 2017 was probably the best fishing I ever saw in Kentucky Lake in the time that I've been here. So I feel like we kind of peaked in 17, and we were starting on our way down after that. And then, so we kind of got down in a real bad lull period, and we've been slowly climbing back out of that. And to me, it's like, most people don't understand, like, take a thing like ledge fishing. 1 pound bass don't swim out there and get in schools on a ledge. They got to get to a certain size before they'll go out there and group up with those fish out there, or else they're food. So that's kind of a determining factor. Like, you kind of realize during ledge season, as the schools get bigger every year, you're starting to realize, okay, like, there's getting to be a better population of those keeper largemouths. So that's what we've seen over the last several years, is the schools are bigger, the ledge bite lasts longer, because when it was coming back, like, after that kind of down period, it was like a week long there for the first year or two when it was starting to come back. And then those fish would get mashed on by so many people, the schools would bust up. Last year, we had 5, 6, 7 weeks of really good ledge fishing, which was fun. And then it kind of had a lull period, and then it came back again, kind of middle of the summer again. They grouped back up in big schools again. So that part to me is kind of the telling part of that the fishery is rebounding and headed to a boom period. I don't know that it'll be to like 2017 levels. I guess that still is to be determined, but we've had so many good spawns since like that 18 kind of downfall. We have a lot of large year classes, so those fish are all coming. Kentucky Lake, it takes 4.5 years for a bass to get to 15 inches, and so you start having good spawns in 17, 18, 19, 20, now we're starting to see the results of that in 24, 25, 26. So I feel like we're headed to this big boom period, because there's a lot of 3 pounders in the lake. That's kind of another telling thing to me. When a lot of people are catching 15 pounds, that kind of tells you the health of a fishery.
Yep. And we saw that this fall and last fall, Jason, at some of the USA Bassing Senior Classic and stuff down there. There was a lot of those 13, 14, 15 inch or 15 pound limits. So yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna and Chad and I talked earlier on some stuff, but you've made statements before of like how fall lasts at Kentucky Lake for like 4 hours and then winter lasts forever. um, how do you define fall down there? I mean, we all know you got that late summer and then you get into that fall and then the winter. But you're right. I mean, it's like one day it's summer, and 3 days later you're in the winter. How do you define that down there?
It's wild to me because so I'm an avid crappie fisherman now, and so like kind of that magic temperature range for crappie is like 50 to 58 degrees, and so you want the water temperature to be that. They'll be the most aggressive. They'll be in bigger schools and all that, and it seems like every year it takes us forever to get down below 60 degrees, and then as soon as it does, it's like 2 mornings later, oh, it's 49. Like,
right.
Really, we got 2 days to do that?
Yeah.
Like, is that a perfect window of fishing?
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I tell people, like, if you're planning a vacation here, X September off the calendar. That is bar none the worst month to fish here. I would rather fish in December than in September because those fish are in such a weird transition because of that. Like, I've seen better topwater days in July and August than I have in September, which makes no sense to people, but I'm telling you, like, it's way better in August,
right?
And you get to September and they're not sure where to be, and they're spread out so much, I think. And then when you get to like December, they get in real predictable places and they don't go anywhere, so they'll be there December and January and February until it starts warming up. They just don't leave those places. So most of us are kind of like, nah, and fall fishing's, I enjoy it. There's way less people on the water.
Oh,
but
yeah.
that window seems like in the spring, you might have 3 months of warm up, right? And then in the fall, it's like you get like 2 weeks of cool down and then it's cold.
Right. Yep.
So
how's all the snow that you all have? Because we've got it too. How's that going to affect the bite as far as warming up that? Without a bunch of rain, is it going to be stuck in that high 30s, low 40s for a while? And
it'll be below 40 for sure when this ice comes off. It'll be, mid 30s to 39 degrees. It can warm up fast. Rain will warm it up faster than anything. Because even if it rains at 45 degrees, that's warmer than everything in the lake.
Right.
So that still helps. But yeah, you either need a calm, sunny day or you need a warm, rainy day to really have an effect on it. And I will say, like, I mean, obviously our water's coming from down south. So if the weather gets better down south significantly, that has a big impact on fishing for us.
Yeah.
Because I've seen times where, like, the bays will be 39 in the main river, like over to the LBL side on the main river, and it's 45 degrees over there because what's coming from down south is way warmer than the water we have here now. So that does factor in at times. I'm a person who thinks water temperature is extremely overrated. In fact, that was my last article I did on my blog, was just what you learn from LiveScope. You're like, yeah, we have made a bunch of assumptions there that are not true. Like, fish move a lot even when the water's cold. They will chase baits. They will get shallow because they do what the bait does. And and I've started to apply that to crappie fishing a lot, but I think it matters in bass fishing too, because some of my best days bass fishing have been in like 8 or 9 foot of water when the water was 39, 40 degrees.
Yeah.
And I think what it is they're not up there all day in that depth, but when they do move up there, they're up there to eat, and you intersect with them, you're going to have a really good time on a few key places.
Yeah.
Now you're not fishing tournaments. Per se, but you're doing a lot of research when you're out there and writing articles and feeding information to people,
and vice versa. I will say, like, I get a lot of my information from my network of the young guys who are really good fishermen on the lake, right? Yes, that I trust and I have fished with a lot, and they've passed me by on what they know about what this lake does and what's going on now, and what they found with LiveScope, because they've spent so many hours out there just, studying these areas, having a tool now that they can really expose everything about what we thought we knew for a long time. They're actually able to prove and disprove a lot of that now. But yeah, you got those young guys, Harlan and Harbor and Clint and these guys that win a lot of tournaments here, I talk to them weekly sometimes just to stay on what's going on, because I don't bass fish as much. I try to go, once a week, once every couple of weeks, just to kind of keep up with what's going on. But I talk to those guys regularly because they're on top of it going every day. And you got guys like Grant and Levi that have won so many tournaments here now, and now they've moved up and started fishing the pro circuits. And those guys share a lot of good information, so I trust what they say when they talk about fishing.
How much has live scope benefited the learning process to better understanding the fish and what the fish does?
Yeah, for me, that's everything. Like, people, that are upset about it, I get the whole fair chase thing, which is a little bit of a misnomer to me, because people were fine with 360, which was, okay, you got an update 5 seconds ago. But, now I'm getting this update every second, and everyone has a problem with that. But, I was back in the very beginning of side imaging with a hummingbird, and was one of the first ones doing that, and went with some guys who were really knowledgeable on it, like Ben Parker and Terry Bolton, and those guys really understood ledge fishing. And then when we got that technology, it really proved a lot of what we thought we knew about that, right? So I learned probably more from side imaging than I've learned from anything. And I would say that with, the detailed mapping too. It's like you start to realize, like, oh, well, that's why a fish gets there, because there is such an abrupt current face there. They can really ambush the bait fish there the best on that one little part of the sledge. And so, yeah, between the maps and that technology, we learned a lot. Now what I'm learning with live scope is what a fish actually does when your lure's around, right? So we had all these assumptions about, like, cold water. Oh, we all have to fish deep, and we all have to fish slow, and the hard, fast rules we made for ourselves. But then you get out there and you're throwing your swim bait out there in deep water, and you're, make another cast, and you start reeling it up as fast as you can reel, and one giant fish comes up and tags it. You can't reel it any faster, and you just caught the biggest fish of the day. Well, that, okay, so yeah, they actually will move pretty good in cold water. And then, then you pull up on a place and it's 8 foot deep and the water's 39 degrees, and you cast your jerk bait up there and you catch like 5 big ones in a row. You're like, like, okay, maybe they do get shallow in the winter, So I think that's part of, like, live scope has kind of opened our eyes. Like, we put a lot of limits on what the fish do that aren't actually true. So for me, that's the biggest thing is, I don't, people will comment like, well, how come I don't see the fish bite on your screen and stuff, or I don't see the fish when you catch it? And like crappie fishing, when I get my lure to the level and I know I've made an accurate cast, I quit looking at the screen. I'm just looking at my rod at that point and focusing on my retrieve. And so, because with crappie fishing especially, most of the time you don't feel a bite, you see a bite. You see your line go limp, or you see a jump in the line. It's what you see. You don't feel it in the rod. And so many people miss that, because even on live scope, there's a delay. So by the time you see him react on the screen, it has already happened. You're actually behind. Right. So,
yeah. Now, I'm going to ask a rogue question that has nothing to do with bass fishing. Stray crappie, the big crappie just out there by themselves. What are they doing?
So I can give you some speculation we have on that. So I've been working with 2 different biologists who've been, studying fish on the lake. One is the guy, it's Dr. Michael Flynn. He runs the Hancock Biological Station on Kentucky Lake. So that's the satellite location for Murray State's biology department, where they can, like, they have cabins and they can do like their doctoral thesis and studies and stay out there at the lake 24 hours a day working on these studies. And they have people come from all over the country to work out there. So Dr. Flynn's an avid fisherman, maybe one of the foremost experts on what is actually in our lakes as far as like macronutrients, microinvertebrates, those things. So he's been going with me and doing samplings. So we sampled crappie, we sampled bluegills. We're pumping their stomachs when we catch them to see what they're eating. We're tracking water. He's actually put a water temperature probe down in the water, like at the depth we're catching them, to see, like, is it actually warmer there? That's what he feels like is going on, is that crappie has set up at a level where there's a pocket of warm water, and he's basically in that level because that's the warmest water. He's preparing his eggs, is what we believe those fish are doing there. And he said it could be a feeding thing also. So, like, we did our first sampling last year in March, and we pumped a bunch of the crappie. And of course, you know, you're not going to pump a shad back out of their mouth because you basically take a water bottle and you squirt water into their mouth, and then it forces whatever's in their belly right then to come back out. Right. Shad's not going to come back out. So I'm sure these fish had shad in them, but what came out was all of these chironomids, and a chironomid's just like a larva of what a mayfly is going to be later. And so, but like some of these crappie would have 100 of them in its belly when you would pump them out. And I was like, why do they have all these chironomids in there? Why don't they just have shad in there? And he said, well, it's an energy expenditure thing in the winter for fish. So that fish can swim up to a piece of wood that has a bunch of moss on it. And there might be 1,000 chironomids on that moss. And he can just go right up there and suck all that off. It takes zero effort to do that. Or he can try to run down a shad that's trying to get away the whole time to get that same energy, you know, to get that same food source or, you know, burst of energy. But he's got to expend so much energy to get it. He kind of broke even, right? So which one's better for him? Well, the one that requires no effort's better for him. And so that part's interesting. But yeah, so Dr. Flynn's been really good about helping me kind of understand what we're trying to put together is why these fish move around, right? So we believe it's a food source thing. Obviously, I kind of am a fisherman who thinks everything is a progression, right? The fish are going from somewhere to do something, like, you know what I mean? They're either like this time of year, they're already thinking about the spawn. They're going to be moving towards their spawning areas from now until then. And so they're in a progression to that. And that's how I've always applied my fishing. It's like, I know they're probably here. I know they probably want to go here. Somewhere between these two places, I should intersect them, right? So that's how I approach fishing. I'm going to start where I think I have the best chance to intersect them somewhere in that path.
Chip.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick your brain on something. You've wrote about how two baits can be identical. You know, same exact bait. You know, like a 6XD or a red eye shad, something or other. You could buy two baits off the shelf. One is going to be phenomenal, and one you may as well just throw it in the trash. It ain't going. You ain't never going to get a bite on it. Doesn't matter. Is there any way that you have found, Jason, that can shorten that besides just time on the water? Is there any way of making that selection? You know, getting two baits, you get to the house. Yeah, this is a good one, or yeah, this is. Is there anything you've picked up on that over the time?
There's probably guys that are better at it than me, but I mean, because there's a lot of those guys that do, like back in the day, DT6s were different. The weight would get loose in them, and so certain baits would run better than other baits, and so guys were able to like go through with the ones on the peg and shake the thing and figure out which ones were the good ones and the not good ones. I'm not a person who can do that. I can put it in the water and fish it and go, yeah, that one sucks. You know, like exactly. I can just tell, like, right, you know, like, and then when you get a good one, you know it's a good one, and like, okay, that goes in the other box because you know that
goes in that goes in the special box. This one goes in the hey, when I get somebody that's fishing with me, they're going to end up putting it in the tree. Here, tie this on. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, and it goes against my personality because I'm not even a person who worries much about color or any of that. Like I pick a color I know works, and I pretty much stick with that. And I may deviate if somebody else is in the boat really killing me with a different color, but most of the time, I honestly feel like profile in your presentation way more than everything else. So like where I think that stuff matters is something like a crankbait, because if that bait is not presenting naturally, it's not doing something to trigger a fish because it's not doing what you're expecting it to do, then you're wasting a lot of time, right? Because you're not presenting the bait correctly. So that's all I try to avoid with that stuff is I want to make sure I'm making the best presentation every cast. And, you know, I think that matters more to the fish, how the lure's presented, than what color it is or, you know, who makes it. You know? So.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, Chad. Jump in there. I know you had a couple of questions for him.
Oh, there's all kinds of questions. We can drown ourselves in some deep holes on this one. Let's talk about, we should definitely talk about, but let's talk about tourism. Seeing these for you guys that live there at Kentucky Lake, we're starting to see some of the tournaments coming back. What has been the vibe in the local community from the businesses and other places seeing
And the
anglers roll
anglers.
back into town?
And the local anglers, how are they
Yeah.
feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, we are, I would say, without a doubt, we are a tournament community, right? So we like having tournaments here. We like having the guys here. And there's not many fisheries, honestly, in the world. Like, it's one thing I've told people, like back when the ledge bite was so good, there would be 300 or 400 schools on Kentucky Lake. You go to a place like Pickwick, there aren't 100 places that the fish get. You know what I mean? So when you have a 200 boat tournament, there's going to be guys on top of each other. Kentucky Lake's a place where a guy can come and spread out and find his own little deal and have it to himself because it's such a massive fishery. So that's one thing I've always loved about this place. We can actually handle a lot of tournaments, and we can handle big tournaments because we have both lakes, and the lakes are both very big. So there's a lot of water to explore and find something and have it all to yourself. That's the other argument I have for LiveScope too is, we're talking like these kids don't know how to fish because they just look at a screen all the time. No, that kid's actually probably fished way more than you have. And he has spent like Grant and Levi, like those guys fished every single day for 10 or 12 hours a day. They got on those screens and studied these areas on their own, didn't go get any information from anyone else, so they're able to break down large pieces of water, and get pretty good at it. So I kind of like that part of LiveScope. Like, I feel like if you took and dropped me anywhere on either of the lakes, I would find either bass or crappie pretty close to me. Wherever you drop me, I would be able to explore the area and find where the best fish are. So now I'm not saying I can do it in an hour, but I feel like a couple of days and, with the technology we have and the mapping and side scan and like, you can find very productive areas and then turn around and be really efficient in them. So I like that technology is making guys fish a lot more and find a lot more on their own. I like that part because my biggest problem with tournament fishing has always been the information thing. Getting information from other anglers, and not doing the work yourself. I've always had a problem with that.
I think that was one of the fun things when Chip and I talked to Grant and Levi here just a few weeks ago. While they may not practice together, they kind of divide and conquer, but at the same time, they don't necessarily tell each other the full truth either.
They admitted, Jason, that they may hold back a little bit even on each other, and it is what it is.
They're both trying to win. I mean,
now that they've moved on to the Toyotas and the Tour, it's gonna, that's gonna pay off. So
well, and that's the thing. They're both good fishermen. They have both spent thousands of hours on the water, right? So it's hard to knock what they're doing and go, well, it's just because they have that technology. No. They've spent more time on the water than a whole bunch of guys have. You're going to have an advantage if you're on the water. And that's just what fishing is. Whoever spends the most time on the water is usually going to be the best at it. So,
go ahead, Chip.
I hear a lot of this, Jason. As a tournament director and out there, you hear, oh, it's those young kids, and they won again because of the technology. What a lot of these folks don't realize is these kids. I say kids because with our age they're still kids, but they've been fishing in the high school or even before that, 8, 9, 12, 14 years old. By the time they get 30 years old, they may have been fishing for 20 years, and they've come through a whole process. So I mean, guys are always like, oh, it's the young kids and it's just the technology. No. Man, I'm telling you, some of these kids that you come across a weigh-in stand or you talk to them in the morning before a tournament, they know the deal. That you could take that box away from them and they're still going to catch them.
No, I would say that for sure because like people think Trey McKinney's just getting waypoints and doing it all with LiveScope. Trey McKinney's been coming down here and fishing with us since he was like 7 years old.
Right.
And I say us, the friends of mine, Terry Bolton, Brandon Hunter, Mark Menendez, like he's been out with a lot of good fishermen.
Yeah.
Multiple times a year for 15 years, you know, like,
Yeah.
like he's going to get to learn, you know, how to be a good ledge fisherman, how to
Yes.
flip bushes, how to do, you know, how to find them on a top water. Like,
Yeah.
he's had a lot of good experience learning that stuff over the years. That's going to make you a good fisherman. Like, he's been at it a lot. People are like, oh, he's, you know, 20-year-old, whatever. But yeah, he's been doing this for like 15 years. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
they're well seasoned at this point. All of these
right,
kids are. They're well seasoned by the time that they're 20.
Well, that's the thing. Like you and me, when we started fishing, like I don't know how old you guys are, but like for me, like yeah, I didn't have a boat till, you know, I went and got a first real good job. I had my dad's boat I could use some of the time, but most of the time I was on foot at their age. You know, like there wasn't high school fishing, college fishing, any of that, right? Like,
I mean, I remember going to tournaments and this kid rolling up, he was like 12, 13 years old on a bicycle with 2 rods. And next thing you know, Jacob Wheeler is, I mean, he was out there showing up at the White River in Indianapolis on a Wednesday nighter looking for somebody with an empty boat at 9 years old. So, I mean, yeah, it's not like you said, it's not getting waypoints. It's not the cheater box or whatever you want to, you know, the live scope, whatever you want, these guys want to refer to it as. It's like you said earlier, it's time on the water, and they're putting that time in.
And people have kind of lumped me into the pro live scope thing. I'm actually, as far as tournaments go, I don't really care one way or the other. It wouldn't bother me to get rid of them or use. I don't really care. Like what I'm anti is people saying that these young guys can't fish because they're good at that technology, right? Because forever since they were kids, they've been told they needed all this electronics to be a good fisherman. So they went and did that and got really good at it. And have spent 8 and 10 years. Because I mean, 4 years of high school fishing, 4 years of college fishing, they've had 8 years doing this, you know, like they're not coming into fishing being newbies at this like I would have been at their age, right? Like when I started fishing tournaments, I didn't know anything, you know, like it's like they're 8 years ahead of where I would have been at their age. And so that's my whole thing with it. It's like I don't care I honestly think like the best tournaments would be if we did some kind of match play tournament, like we go to a lake and you're like, all right, all you can do is flip docks at this tournament. And then we go to another tournament. All you can do is throw a frog at this tournament. Okay, we'll go to another tournament. All you can do is flip bushes at this tournament, use top water, whatever, you know, like, because I would like to see who's the best at those different things. It's
it'd be cool.
Because it was that way here for years. Like, you know, okay, well, they're in the bushes. Well, you're fixing to give a bunch of your money to Drew Boggs or Terry Bolton or, you know, some of these guys that are really good at flipping bushes, you know, like, so you just knew that was coming, right? And now it's kind of the same way. It's like, oh, they're offshore and you're going to have to use your electronics. Well, you're fixing to give your money to Grant and Levi and Clint and Harlan and, you know, like these same guys every time, right? Like,
and in those guys in the younger generation's defense, we made them. We did this. It's not they didn't just come. We invited them.
That's my thing that I laugh about now is like I love live scope because I'm a person who like wants to always be learning, right? So like my whole career has been about learning and teaching, and so it's a tool that provides me a lot of information to learn that I feel like I can pass on to other people and go, yeah, this isn't theory. This is like, we're literally watching this real time. You know, this is really what they do. They really are in 5 foot of water in January, which everybody would laugh you out of the room if you told them that. I'm like, I can show you in my video on the screen. You're watching me catch them in 5 foot of water. Like, so that part of it I love, you know, but yeah, just to say that, you know, oh, these guys can't fish if they didn't have electronics. Well, that's not true. You know, like the electronics is just making them efficient is all it's doing. And nobody had a problem when it was mapping and side imaging and 360. And, you know, like, it's like, we've been doing this the whole time. You know, when I got side imaging, I thought it was the next coming because, you know, I had been a 2D guy and I was pretty good at it growing up, you know, fishing Beaver Lake and some Highland impoundments in Arkansas. And so I got really good with 2D. Then you get this new technology that lets you look way out to the side and find every little stump you didn't know about on a lake like Kentucky Lake that has 10,000 stumps on it. That's a pretty good advantage, right? So, and now it's coming kind of full circle. It's like, okay, well, we found all these stumps. Well, now we're, you know, now we're realizing, oh, you know, the smallmouth spawn out there on those things. Oh, well, you know, like,
we need to go back out there.
Right. That's right. Yeah. I've marked 2,000 stumps. And now I'm going back and fishing them. I'm going, wow, these things are full of fish. Like, that I never knew before. Cause that's the thing. It's like, we made all these assumptions not knowing we were probably around fish, right? And our
Mm-hmm.
lure went right by a fish and had a fish follow and just never got that bite to give us the feedback, right? Now we have something that is actually providing some feedback even when you don't get a bite. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's even like you could say with just 2D sonar. I mean, how many guys, there's still a lot of people that visually need that tree on the bank to throw to imagine that there's something there. And I think a little bit of what we're in now is you we see it on the screen in such real time that we are able to pinpoint those things. But there's guys that can run down the bank all day long and not realize that the fish are at the bottom of right underneath their boat where the water falls off rather
well,
than in that 2 foot of water.
I'll tell you, moving to Kentucky 20 years ago, one of the hardest things for me to learn here, because I had lived, in Arkansas and I had grown up fishing like on Lake Dardanelle and the Arkansas River, and it's all like fishing things you see, right? So then I came here and realized, like, yeah, Kentucky lake bass don't really like to be on the bank. They like to be like away from the bank on some kind of edge, that's you have nothing to relate to. You know what I mean? Like there's no visual lineup. You're literally throwing out into an ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean you can't be efficient fishing here. It's such a massive body of water. People don't realize how big it is, how much water there is to cover. And then, oh, by the way, the fish hardly ever are up on the bank, just maybe a few weeks out of the whole year. And then so it's like, yeah, you have to have electronics or this can be very daunting, right? Because I'll tell you, like as a fisherman, I'd like to go to other places that are smaller bodies of water where I don't need electronics and you can just fish visual. I enjoy that a lot and I go do that a lot. It's one of the reasons I got back into trout fishing even. It's just like I enjoy going to new places and learning about fish, and I don't always need electronics to do that. But on a huge body of water like this, where there's, trillion gallons of water to break down, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you got to have some tools to help you do that efficiently, especially if you're a tournament fisherman and you got a short window to do it in. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you the old saying of 10% of the fishermen catch 90% of the fish? Are we still seeing that just with the electronics, or is that what do I want to say, that there's still that internal sense? There's those guys that just have that. Doesn't matter if it's electronics or not. Is any of that changing now?
Yeah, so the electronics to me is just an efficiency thing. If you're a good fisherman, the electronics will help you be more efficient, right? If you're not a good fisherman, the efficiency will help you be better, but it won't make you necessarily a great fisherman, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of my thinking on it. Yeah, and I will say I know fishermen here on Kentucky Lake who are natural fishermen. I don't consider myself a natural fisherman. I have to work at it, right? So I
Right.
have to learn
Right.
as much as I can learn it. There are people like Dan Moorhead is a person I would say is a natural fisherman. Like if he lands in an area where there's 10 bass, he'll catch 10 of them. You know what I mean? Like he
Right.
just he has like a natural sense about him about that. And Terry Bolton's that way a lot too. Like
There, yeah.
so those guys are very good natural fishermen. Where a person like me, I got to do the study and and read all the variables and
Yeah.
and then and like even like lining up points without electronics, like throwing out a brush pile, like Terry and Dan and Mark, those guys are amazing at that. Like just lining up on things on the bank and hitting the
Right.
thing out there in the middle of nothing. Where I never was good at that, and so it's like the electronics helped me at least be efficient at that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't think electronics turns a terrible fisherman into a good fisherman. It probably makes a bad fisherman a little more efficient, so he does catch more fish. But a good fisherman, a guy who puts in the time and understands why they go from this area to that area, he's just uber efficient. Now he gets to be a real handful with electronics.
Got a few audience questions, and this is actually the perfect time to segue this one in.
Sure.
Hoosier 82. What's the most efficient and effective way to break down big water like Kentucky Lake, where you have acres of water but only 2% is effective?
Yeah, my deal with that is turn sections of the lake into mini lakes. So like a place like Big Sandy is as big as many states' lakes, right? Like, so just
Yeah.
that one creek arm on our lake is bigger than most states' lakes. And so, and same thing for some of these other creeks. Like, you can get in a creek, especially like, as we get into the pre-spawn, you could just spend one day in one creek and fish a lot of different things to start to put together patterns. And that's, for me, that's been the easiest way to learn things. And then as you understand what they do in the one creek, then you jump to the next creek and go, is that also happening here? I will say Kentucky Lake is a little weird on that. Like if there's a pre-spawn crankbait bite, you can kind of figure out like they want to be on the flatter rounded ones in these conditions. They want to be on the steeper, more 45-degree ones, in these kind of conditions. And then you can run around and do that some. But it still seems to me like you take a creek like Big Bear, there's 5 or 6 points in there that will have fish on them to catch on a pre-spawn crankbait, and there'll be 20 points in there that never have fish on them. And so that
Yeah.
part of it is like
I found those 20.
It's kind of like a spot lake, right? Like I want to say like the good spot. The old joke here was the good spots are the good spots because they're the good spots. Like one spot is going to always have fish on it year after year after year after year. Like, why do they always want to get here when there's 7 more ledges that look just like this one? Like, why do they only want to get on this one? Like, I that part I couldn't tell you why that is, but yeah, as far as that breaking down a lake, I use the creek arms to kind of teach me what the fish are doing. And then once I kind of figure it out in one creek, then I try to run around and duplicate that in other creeks. And then for me, it becomes more like which creeks have the better quality, right? And then you can, once you've kind of figured out a pattern and you've tested several creeks, then you can kind of figure out, okay, this creek has the better quality of fish. I'm going to spend all my time in here. And it applies for the main lake too. Like if you learn they're on the first, major point going in on a steep bank in every bay, you can run that everywhere, right? And figure out which areas have the best quality. So for me, it's figuring it out in a small place and then expanding what you figure out from there at all the other places.
Man, that's some good stuff right there, boys. Folks out there, that's some good stuff. So
Yeah, well,
throwing that question right there, Chad.
Mr. Brian Crossan asked, Jason, with everything you've written, what is one of your favorite pieces?
That's good. That's a good question. I don't know. I've probably some of the opinion pieces I've done over the years, and I try not to get in the fray too much. I'm not a guy who enjoys drama. I don't like gossip. I don't do a lot of doc talk because I don't really want to know what other people think on just for my own benefit. I don't want it to skew too much of what I'm kind of figuring out on my own. But I don't know. There's been some opinion pieces I've done over the years. I did one about like anglers of immediacy. It was just like how the courtesy thing on the water was kind of starting to go away. That resonated with a lot of people, but it's probably more the pieces that have helped people. I did a kind of a quirky one years ago with Wire to Fish where we did it was a fish ruler, and it's basically how you measure fish, and it was based on the thumb, the tooth marks on your hand. Up here it's 1 pound, and down here it's like 2 pounds. Getting down here it's like 3 pounds. If you've got like marks down in here, you're catching 5 pounders.
Yeah.
So it's kind of how we measured fish. But yeah, I enjoy. I don't want to be too opinionated because I'm a guy who feels like I'll never learn everything about this, so I should never come across that way to people, right? I'm always changing my mind because I've learned something that disproved what I thought before, and so I never want to come across as a know-it-all. So I'm kind of guarded about that. That's why I don't do a lot of opinion pieces, just because I don't want to be taken that way, right? So,
do you think the fish are like you're learning something, but then you find something changing? Do you think those fish are evolving?
For sure. I think we probably have something to do with that. There was when I say September is one of the worst months because those fish spread out. I think they get in a place we don't fish for them. I think that's what was going on. And so it's like what, Terry and I used to always joke, well, they're all just sitting out there in the middle of the bay, there's some place that we're not ever going to go throw a lure. So it's like, so yeah, I think we probably move them around a bit. I know we do it with like crappie, guys will fish the same 10 brush piles and tell you about how terrible fishing is, even though you can go somewhere else and they're just crushing it. But it's like, yeah, you might have fished these places out a little bit because everyone and their brothers fishing the same 10 places in here. And, when it gets to be crappie season in Jonathan Creek and there's 500 boats in there and guys are like, man, it sucks in here. It's like, there's 500 of y'all in there. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
They moved on, boys.
Right.
I got to ask this before we run out of time. And I know this is USA Bassin, but
ask away.
The shell cracker. You got to touch. I mean, for the folks that have the time to go down in that, what is it? That May, that middle May into May shell cracker time.
Yeah.
I mean, tell the folks that take your wife and kids down there because
he waited almost an hour for this.
If you want to talk to me all night about something, this is the topic because it's my favorite fish, so it's my favorite thing to talk about. But yeah, I mean, like April's when I really get after them hot and heavy. They're pre-spawn in April and they're fairly predictable even then. But May is for sure when the spawn really starts for them. There'll be some spawn in April, depending on how warm your waters get. It needs to get to 70 degrees before those fish will start spawning pretty heavily. The last 2 years, honestly, the best shell cracker fishing has been in June for me. So it's getting later. It's getting pushed back. Historically, like the peak of like bluegill bed fishing is Memorial Day weekend. And so,
right. Yeah.
But now it's kind of it seems like we have a lot more cold fronts in April, which just like is shifting the scale a little bit further into June. So like the last 2 years, my best red ear fishing's been in June, just as far as like finding more fish, right? Like I had a lot of, our limit here is 20 fish per person. So I've had a lot of 20 fish days in June, 20 shell cracker days, but yeah, it's my favorite thing, and I have a ton of content coming out of that. So there's another biologist who was doing his master thesis this past year, and I think he's been doing it over a year actually. But he put telemetry trackers in 25 red ears, I believe, and he had beacons set up on the lake and could follow their movements up and down the lake. So Justin is going to let me share some of his information in an upcoming article, and we'll kind of peel the layers back on that. And then Dr. Flynn and I have been working on diet profiles, so we have a lot of cool stuff coming on that down the road here. But yeah, April, May, June's kind of the hot window for them. We're starting to understand. There's a couple guys that are really phenomenal red ear fishermen on the lake, and they catch them really good in the fall. Tony Shepard's a local guide, crappie fishing guide on the lake. Tony's cousin Anthony is a tremendous red ear fisherman, and he catches them probably better in the fall than most people do in the spring. And so, but he understands kind of their progression and their movements. And so I tell people all the time, like, if I could catch those things 12 months out of the year, you probably wouldn't be able to talk to me about a bass or a crappie. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know there's some guys here from the southern part of the state that are, I mean, they are bass heads. A couple of them have been to the Classic. Okay, I mean, we got a couple of bass that end of May they're headed to Kentucky Lake, and they are headed down there. They're on those red ears, and they're just, I mean, they'll spend a week. That's what it, and they don't talk. Nobody talks about it. I mean, you're about the only one I know that really talks about that red ear bite.
It's the most guarded secret by far on this lake because, and I will say, like, if you look at all the game fish on this lake, for sure our smallest population is red ear.
Red ears.
There's 1,000 bluegill for every one red ear in this lake, right? So, and a bluegill on Kentucky Lake, Barkley Lake, most people don't know this, they only live to be 5 or 6 years old. That's why we don't have a lot of 10-inchers. You find 10-inchers up north because those fish will live 15 years because of their metabolisms. The biologists explain it to me like they're like car engines, right? So their metabolism is always revved up at our location here. So they only have maybe 1 month a year where they kind of slow down. So they run hot for 5 or 6 years, and die off before they get to a big size. But a red ear can live to be like 13, 14, 15 years old here. So that's why we get those like I caught one close to 3 pounds last year. I caught my longest one last year was like 14 and a quarter.
Wow.
It wasn't the heaviest one I've ever caught, but it was, I mean, it's almost a 15-inch red ear. It's a giant fish. So it was kind of.
But for folks that don't know, I mean, go check your Facebook page out, because I know I do. There are some phenomenal, and I know where this is a bass fishing thing, but man, I'm telling you, the red ear for the tourism down there, there is just so many things that Kentucky Lake and Barkley Lake offer. I mean, besides that's fishing.
That's why I work with the tourism people, because I'm very passionate about the lakes in general, like, because they're so unique in that there's so many different species that it's like really quality fishing here, like bluegill, shellcracker, even the stripers have come back. The white bass fishing is incredible here. Cat fishing is incredible here. Like, it's like we have all these awesome species. The saugers have come back now. Like, so we have all this like really cool fishing to do here. So, and I even helped like the tourism people create a calendar. It's like, look, I can tell people like what the best bite is month to month. Like, if you're coming in this month, this is the thing that would probably be the easiest to catch if you just wanted to go catch fish. And here's where I would go look for them. So I helped them kind of put that together.
One of our directors down at Kentucky Lake, we were texting back and forth night before last, and he was telling me about a bite that I had no idea about. Was below the dams were the gar. He's catching 40, 50, 60-inch gar, which, I know a lot of us don't target them, but you talk about, I mean, it kind of goes to your point of there's so many species down there. The tourism really, angling is an important thing for down there.
For sure. Yeah. We call this God's country because the hunting's really good here and the fishing's phenomenal.
Right.
Here. So,
right.
And a lot of different things, right? Like, not just one thing. There's good turkey hunting. There's good deer hunting. There's great squirrel hunting. It's like, there's lots good rabbit hunting. There's lots of good hunting here.
Yeah.
And then fishing's the same way. It's like, there's so many, like, you could go have your best day catfishing here. You could go have your best day crappie fishing here. You could go have your best day smallmouth fishing here. Like, it's not very many places that are like that, where every species of fish is really phenomenal fishing. So,
Now, give us, while we're talking about tourism, give us your 5 best off the water places to hit.
Well, if you like to drink, we love the damn brew house. That's like
now, don't be telling everybody.
That's our little watering hole. Thursday night they have karaoke. My wife likes to go, or not karaoke, trivia.
I didn't fare so well at trivia.
Well, my wife's a teacher, so they bring their group of teachers up there and take everybody's money and prizes. So
I failed miserably on that one.
But yeah, so that's a good place. I love Parcells if you're looking for a good place to go get a burger and food. And they have, they have an awesome little coffee shop and do donuts in the morning. So it's family owned business. We love that place. My favorite restaurant on the lake is not because my friend owns it or because it's attached to a tackle shop, but it's Fast Eddie's. They have awesome steaks. Fried catfish is like world renowned. Their Friday night fish dinner and Saturday night steak dinners and Tuesday night pizza day. And so they got specials, pretty much all through the week. They're not open on Sundays and Mondays, but every other day of the week, there's usually a special going on. So that place is phenomenal. And again, another great family owned business that the wife runs the kitchen, the husband runs the store. And of course, Eddie's still around. He helps stock shelves and do whatever there. So that's a great place. And other places off the water. I mean, if you just like being outdoors, the LBL's just an amazing place anyways to hike around, and there's lots to do and see in there. There's all kinds of different hiking trails. There's the elk and bison range. There's all kinds of things in the LBO. So it's a really cool place to just hang out and be outside. Other than that, I don't know. We have awesome tackle shops here, of course, Fast Eddie's, but Kentucky Lake Outdoors is another great store. They just moved to a new location right next to High Tech Outdoors, which is a great place to get your boat rigged. And or if you're here for a tournament and you're having an issue, those are the guys to go see. So
yeah, their new sponsor. That I was gonna say they're sponsoring some stuff out of USA Bassin. They've jumped on. So yeah, great folks down there at High Tech. Those guys are awesome.
Yeah, yeah. A bunch of them are fishermen, so they will get your boat set up right. So
yeah. So
Chad,
I this is one of those I think we could go on for hours, but
we could, but everybody that's watching, we gotta cut you off. I hate it because we could go on, and we probably will go on at some point.
Yeah.
But Jason, we would love to have you back on the podcast at some point
absolutely.
soon. I know that you have a plethora of information that you can give to the anglers, and I know you like sharing it. Tell people where they can consume. I'm not even going to call it content because I want to call it pieces or your writing and the different things that you do. Let them know like the different areas where they can go and consume that information.
Sure. My business is Current Fish. It's mostly doing content marketing work for the industry now, but I do have I have a blog. It's currentfish.substack.com. So you can look up Current Fish on Substack and find me over there. I'm on all the social channels, so you can find me under my name, Jason Sealock, on Facebook and Instagram. And then I'm just starting to get my YouTube channel going, so I'm going to try to put a video up every week there. Mostly be stuff from around the lakes here, so be crappie and shell crackers and bass and whatever else I can get into. There'll be some trout fishing stuff in there. I do like to travel and fish quite a bit. I'm doing that a lot more now. I've kind of made that decision not to wait till I'm an old man to go do some of those trips. I'm trying to go do them now. So I drove up to the Upper Peninsula in my truck and went to the driftless region and fly fished. And so I'm getting out and doing that more. But yeah, no, I appreciate being on. I always enjoy talking fishing. I'm passionate about the lakes in our area. So I want other people to come enjoy them too. And it's kind of in a boom period now where we're climbing to get back to a, kind of the glory days of what I would call Kentucky Lake. So a lot of the species were already there. And so I think the one that's been lagging behind is largemouth. And it's now getting to that point again where it's going to be really fun for the next several years.
Yeah, I think it's just hitting the stride. I think that whole area is just gonna. The only bad thing I could see out of all of it is there's a lot of us my age or in that mid to late 50s that they're going to start retiring and looking for something. I know we are. We're looking for someplace, and we're looking in that area. So yeah, it's something. It's a beautiful area, and the folks always make us at USA Bass. I mean, they roll out the red carpet for us, and that's why we keep going back.
Yeah, it's one of the best trails. Everyone that I talk to that fishes it loves it. So yeah, hats off to them. They do a great job, and I know we love having them here. So
23 years.
Yep.
23 years. So
23 years and 22nd annual USA Bassin Classic presented by Basscat, just about ready to go down here at the end of April. So
excellent.
We're looking forward to it and looking forward to getting back down there. Looking forward to going to the brew house with you, Jason. It'll be a good time. Come on. We might do a live podcast for everybody, Jason.
There you go.
Now that would be cool. That would be cool.
We'd have to get Chip to come.
Yeah. That would be a good one. We need to do a live broadcast.
There you go.
A live podcast right there.
But well, folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, we will catch you guys on the next one 2 weeks from now on a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, let's go bassing. Good night, everybody.
See ya.
See ya.